Somewhere along the way, a message settled in, quietly, without anyone saying it directly, that desire, intimacy, and sexual health belonged to a younger version of you. That the sensible thing was to accept that and move on. For many women over 60, that message was never questioned, because no one gave them a reason to. I want to give you that reason today. What the research actually shows about women's sexual health after 60 directly contradicts the silence that has surrounded this topic for decades. And what you are about to hear may change not just how you think about this subject, but how you think about your own health in the years ahead. Why this conversation has been missing. Welcome to Healthy Aging Research. My name is Emily Hart. This channel exists to give adults over 55 the honest, evidence-informed guidance that a standard appointment rarely has time to cover. Today we are speaking specifically to the women in our community about something that affects virtually every woman over 60, but is discussed openly by almost none of them. Before we begin, everything we cover today is educational guidance, not a replacement for a conversation with your own doctor. Please speak with your healthcare provider before making any changes, particularly if you are managing any gynecological condition or hormonal treatment. Now, let us get into the science. The foundation. What changes after menopause? After menopause, estrogen levels drop significantly. And estrogen was doing an enormous amount of quiet maintenance work throughout your body. Work that most women only notice when it stops. It maintained the elasticity and moisture of vaginal tissue. It supported the pelvic floor. It influenced blood flow to the genital region. It protected urinary tract tissue, and it played a role in the neurological pathways that govern sexual response and arousal. When estrogen declines, all of those systems begin to change. But here is what most women are never told. Regular sexual activity is one of the most evidence-supported ways to slow and in some cases partially reverse many of these changes. Not because of anything mystical, but because of straightforward physiology. Think of it the way you would think about joint health. A joint that is regularly moved maintains its lubrication and flexibility far better than a joint that is kept still. The tissue stays responsive because it is being asked to respond. The same principle operates in the female reproductive system after menopause. One more thing worth knowing. Current clinical guidelines from the North American Menopause Society and the British Menopause Society support low-dose topical vaginal estrogen as safe and effective for managing these tissue changes, with minimal systemic absorption. Sexual activity and medical support are not either-or choices. For many women, they are complementary parts of the same picture. Before we move on, right now, 98% of the people watching this video are not subscribed. If you are finding this useful, take a second to subscribe. We are working toward 1,000 subscribers by the end of this month. 1 second is all it takes. The 5 benefits science has consistently found. Let's go. Benefit 1. Vaginal tissue health. This is the benefit with the most direct clinical evidence, and the one most women over 60 have never had properly explained to them. After menopause, vaginal tissue atrophy is one of the most common and most undertreated conditions in women's health. Tissue becomes thinner, drier, and more fragile. Intercourse becomes uncomfortable or painful. And because the discomfort is embarrassing to raise, many women simply accept it as an inevitable feature of aging. Research has consistently found that women who remain sexually active after menopause experience significantly less vaginal atrophy. The tissue maintains greater elasticity. Natural lubrication is better preserved. Imagine Catherine, age 63. She went through menopause at 58 and gradually withdrew from sexual activity, partly because it had become uncomfortable and partly because she absorbed the quiet cultural message that this was simply what happened now. By 62, the discomfort had worsened. She mentioned it briefly at a routine appointment and was given a leaflet about lubricants. The conversation lasted 90 seconds. What Catherine was never told is that the withdrawal itself had accelerated the very changes causing her discomfort, that the tissue responds to use, that gentle, regular sexual activity combined with appropriate lubricants and in some cases topical estrogen is one of the most effective ways to maintain tissue health after menopause.
That conversation is this one.
Benefit 2: urinary tract health. Here is something that will resonate with a significant number of women watching this. Urinary tract infections become dramatically more common after menopause. Women who rarely experienced them before 60 find themselves managing recurrent infections that disrupt daily life and require repeated courses of antibiotics. The reason is directly connected to estrogen decline. The tissue lining the urethra shares the same estrogen-dependent properties as vaginal tissue. When estrogen drops, urethral tissue becomes thinner and less resistant to bacteria. Regular sexual activity may support urinary tract health through increased blood flow to the entire urogenital region, helping to maintain the tissue integrity that forms part of its natural defenses. Think about Margaret, age 66. She has had 4 UTIs in the past 18 months. Her doctor has mentioned a preventative antibiotic. No one has discussed this mechanism with her. No one has mentioned that topical vaginal estrogen, which her gynecologist could prescribe, restores urethral tissue to a state that dramatically reduces UTI frequency. Margaret is representative of millions of women being managed symptomatically when the underlying physiology has interventions available that no one has taken the time to explain. Benefit 3: pelvic floor strength and continence. How many women do you know, yourself possibly included, who have simply accepted light bladder leakage as an unavoidable part of getting older? The acceptance is so widespread it feels like a fact of female aging, when it is actually a largely addressable physiological change. The muscular contractions that occur during orgasm are vigorous, involuntary exercises of the pelvic floor, the muscles responsible for urinary control and continence. A stronger pelvic floor means better bladder control and reduced risk of pelvic organ prolapse. Think about Frances, age 68. She has been quietly managing what she calls her leaking problem for 3 years. She buys incontinence pads without telling her daughter. She has stopped going to her exercise class because of what happened once, and she has never spoken to her doctor about any of it, because she assumed this was what 68 felt like. What Frances does not know is that her pelvic floor has not failed. It has simply been underused. And the path back, through pelvic floor exercises, through regular sexual activity, through a conversation with her doctor, is available to her right now. Benefit 4: cardiovascular protection and sleep. Orgasm produces a consistent hormonal shift. Cortisol drops sharply. Oxytocin and dopamine surge. The nervous system moves from its alert state into its recovery state. For women over 60 managing blood pressure or the chronic low-level stress that comes from caregiving and daily life, this is a genuine, evidence-supported cardiovascular reset. And then there is sleep. After orgasm, the body releases prolactin, a hormone strongly associated with deep, restorative sleep. For women dealing with the sleep disruption that commonly follows menopause, this natural sleep-promoting mechanism is worth understanding. Think about Susan, age 68. She manages her blood pressure with medication. She rarely sleeps more than 5 broken hours. Her doctor has discussed sleep hygiene. She has tried the standard list. Nothing has moved the needle. No one has ever placed her sexual health in the same conversation as her sleep or her blood pressure. No one has connected the high cortisol physiological state her body operates in to the evidence that regular orgasm directly addresses both markers simultaneously. Susan's situation is not unusual, and the conversation she has never had may be the one that makes the most practical difference. Benefit 5. Cognitive protection and brain health. Multiple studies have found associations between regular sexual activity in older women and better performance on measures of memory, processing speed, and executive function. These are associations rather than confirmed causal relationships, but they are consistent enough to belong in this conversation. The leading mechanism is increased cerebral blood flow. Orgasm significantly raises blood flow to brain regions governing memory, decision-making, and focus. The hormonal environment it creates, oxytocin elevated, cortisol suppressed, is also the state most conducive to neuroplasticity. Think of two women, both 70. Both walk daily, both eat well. One maintains an active sexual life, one does not. Research suggests the first may be giving her brain a form of stimulation, vascular, hormonal, neurological, that the second is not. Not a guarantee, not a cure, but a consistent signal in the data, particularly meaningful for women who are watching a parent move through dementia and quietly asking themselves what they can do. The 5 risks worth knowing. Are you in? Risk 1. Physical discomfort accepted as inevitable. Vaginal dryness and tissue thinning make sexual activity uncomfortable for a significant proportion of women after menopause. When unaddressed, this creates a withdrawal cycle. Activity becomes painful, stops, tissue atrophies further, and resuming becomes more painful than before. Think about Eileen, age 65. She and her husband of 38 years stopped being intimate 3 years ago. Not because of a conversation, not because of a decision. It just gradually stopped, because it had become uncomfortable for Eileen, and neither of them found a way to name what was happening. What Eileen does not know is that high-quality lubricants designed for postmenopausal tissue can make an immediate, practical difference. That topical vaginal estrogen restores tissue health with minimal systemic effect. That the withdrawal itself is making things worse. The woman who accepts discomfort as the end of the story is making a decision based on incomplete information. And that is a decision she can revisit. Risk 2. Emotional disconnection mistaken for physical limitation. After menopause, changes in arousal and physical response can create a disconnect between emotional desire and physical readiness. A woman may want intimacy, but find her body does not respond as quickly as it once did. She interprets this as her body withdrawing permission. That interpretation is not physiologically accurate. Think about Helen, age 62. 2 years out of a long marriage, she has felt a quiet return of interest in intimacy. But her body feels unfamiliar, slower. She interprets this as confirmation that this part of her life is over. What Helen is experiencing is not the end of desire. It is the neurological and vascular effect of estrogen decline. A changed timeline, not a closed door. Arousal after menopause often requires more time and more deliberate conditions than before. That is physiology, not failure. Risk 3. Ignoring changes that need medical attention. Pain during sexual activity that is new or has changed. Bleeding after sexual activity in postmenopausal women, which is never normal and always warrants prompt medical evaluation. Significant changes in sensation or discharge. Think about Patricia, age 64. She notices light bleeding after sexual activity twice in 3 months. She tells herself it is probably just dryness. She waits 6 months before mentioning it to her doctor. Her doctor refers her immediately. The outcome is good, caught early, treated effectively. But the 6 months of delay was not necessary.
If something has changed, speak to your doctor. That conversation is not embarrassing, it is responsible, and in some cases, it is urgent. Risk 4. STI risk after 60. STI rates in adults over 60 have risen significantly over the past 2 decades. Postmenopausal women face a specifically elevated biological risk. The same vaginal tissue thinning that causes atrophy also makes tissue more permeable to infection. Think about Diane, age 64, newly single after the death of her husband of 30 years. She begins a relationship. STI risk genuinely does not occur to her. Her new partner does not raise it. It remains unaddressed. Diane represents a generation of women who received no education on this topic as it applies to later life. The practical guidance is straightforward. Condom use remains the most effective protection against STI transmission, regardless of age. Routine testing before becoming sexually active with a new partner is simple and entirely appropriate. Your GP or sexual health clinic can advise.
This is not alarm. It is information every sexually active woman over 60 deserves to have. Risk 5. Emotional dependency and the replacement of connection. For women over 60 navigating loss or loneliness, sexual activity can become a default emotional management tool rather than one element of a full life. The neurochemical reward is real, but it does not replicate the sustained protective effect of genuine human connection. It temporarily reduces the felt urgency of seeking it. Think about Barbara, age 69. She lost her sister 18 months ago. Her social world has contracted. She has developed a private habit that helps her fall asleep. But she has noticed she calls her children less, that she has declined invitations, that the urgency to reach out has quietly diminished. Barbara is not in crisis, but she is in a pattern, and the pattern, left unexamined, will deepen the isolation rather than address it.
Sexual well-being should be one thread in a woven life, not a substitute for the other threads that sustain it. If you have watched this far, you already know whether this channel gives you something genuinely useful. Subscribing takes 1 second and means every video we publish will find you automatically. Hit subscribe now and the like button too. It helps more women over 55 find this channel and the information you just received. A direct word before the close. If something in this video loosened a quiet relief in you, that someone is finally saying what you were not sure you were allowed to think, sit with that for a moment. The silence around women's sexual health after 60 has not protected anyone. It has left generations of women managing preventable discomfort and missing information they deserve to have. You are not too old for this conversation. You are not past the point where it matters. The next step is simple. Bring what you learned today to your doctor. Ask the questions this video gave you permission to ask. That is exactly what this channel is for. A simple recap. After menopause, estrogen decline changes the physiology of the vaginal region, the pelvic floor, the urinary tract, and the neurological pathways of sexual response. These changes are real, and they are not inevitable in their severity. Regular sexual activity slows vaginal tissue atrophy, may support urinary tract health, activates pelvic floor muscles that protect continence, provides cardiovascular and sleep benefits, and shows consistent associations with cognitive protection. The 5 risks: discomfort accepted as inevitable, emotional disconnection mistaken for physical limitation, ignoring changes that need medical attention, STI risk most older women have never been told about, and emotional dependency replacing genuine connection, are all addressable when named clearly and honestly. Your sexual health after 60 is not a closed chapter. It is an active area of your well-being, one that responds to knowledge, attention,
and the willingness to have conversations that have been too long delayed. Before you go, if you found this helpful, a like costs you nothing and helps more women over 60 find this channel. And if you are not yet subscribed, this channel is built for you. Every week, calm and honest guidance on the health topics that matter most after 55. The conversations your appointment did not have time for. Subscribe so you never miss one. One last thing. Everything covered today is educational. Any new or changed symptoms deserve a direct conversation with your doctor. Please do not use this video as a reason to delay that conversation. Use it as a reason to finally have it. Take good care of yourself, and we will see you in the next one.